dwellers, and welcome to the basement. We're, of course, talking anime here on Friday, January 20th, 2017. We're up to episode 20 of Blue Sea, titled I Am Home, Izumo, the Prologue of Hope. The original air date of this episode was February 15th, 1995, with its English broadcast being January 8th in the year 2000. Now, with this episode, we are finished with the third disc on this box set that ADV put out back in 2005. So, Descent into, Prelude to Sacrifice is now finished, which means next week we'll be kicking off the fourth and final disc titled Nightfall. And I'll explain my schedule on how that's going to happen at the end of this particular video, because we have the returns of Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, The Flash, and Arrow next week, which means I won't be able to do double shots of talking anime the way I have been since the start of December. Anyway, let's get right to this episode here. As giant roots are popping up all over Japan, which is a correction to what I said at the end of episode 19, that it was a giant tree. No, it's a giant root. The Japanese government is on Mr. Kunikita's ass about him putting a stop to it, because people are starting to ask questions about it and all the origami monsters, particularly foreign countries. But Mr. Kunikita does have a theory that Murakumo and Katie are taking the now teenager-looking Susanoo O around Japan to certain shrines to absorb the power, and the most important one must be in Izumo, where everything began for Momiji. And that is where the focus of this episode primarily is. It's on Momiji returning home 6 months after being attacked by Orochi, her school being destroyed, being implanted with a Matama, joining the TAC. It's been a long time since Momiji has been in her hometown. Now, to show how much Momiji has changed, she is very reluctant to just go home and reconnect with her mother, grandmother, and her best friend, who instantly notices that Momiji is bottling everything up inside, and works throughout the episode to kind of provoke her into opening up to be her old self once again. And it's primarily that Momiji hasn't really had anyone to talk to when you really think about it. About the initial monster attack that she went through joining the TAC, dealing with Kusanagi, the pressure of being the Kushinada. Basically, Momiji has needed someone to talk to, and since she's kept everything inside, all her feelings and emotions and everything of that nature, sure, she's had Kome, and the other Takeuchi and the Yagashi and the other members of the TAC to talk to, but not someone her own age, or someone who knows her as well as her best friend does. So Momiji basically has been needing this for quite a while. Beyond this, venting, which happens primarily off camera, but it's clear that Momiji does open up and lets off some steam. She is getting visions from not only the ancient past, but she's also getting visions of a possible future, and now has the ability to communicate with Kusanagi telepathically over great distances. This is thanks to them getting their respective Matama, the 7 that Kusanagi has and the 1 Momiji has, from Orochi. And there was a nice phrase in it, I think it was something along the lines of 8 into 1. So we are 1, because they have the 8 split between them, which gives Momiji confidence that she will be able to survive anything, because she will never be alone. Because she knows that now that no matter where they are, wherever she is, Kusanagi is going to be with her, at least with this telepathic connection. So that's a nice bit of reassurance there when you really think about it. As far as Kusanagi goes, he doesn't really get to do much. He's in the opening portions of the episode. He's basically pursuing Katie, Murakumo, and Susanoo O around Japan, and nearly has a fatal encounter with them at the very start, only surviving because Katie ordered Murakumo to back the hell off at the very last instant. And in the episode's climax, Kusanagi again confronts them. Even though he stands no chance, Kusanagi is pretty damn determined to take out Susanoo at all cost. So that's basically what he's up to. He's just chasing them around Japan and trying his damnedest to get the job done, though he is very much underpowered when going up against Murakumo. Also involved in this story, obviously, is Mr. Kunikita along with Takeuchi, as they're looking for this shrine in Izumo that is part of Murakumo and Katie's plan. Turns out there is no such shrine per se, but they learned from Momiji's grandmother that these roots that are popping up all over the country are part of a ritual that could create more Matama and potentially a country full of origami. Basically, it's a big setup to raise an army so that they can, you guessed it, take over the world. Of course! Of course, that's been the end game all along, but at least we know there is a point. There's one slight criticism regarding, and it's not just a Blue Sea. It's kind of like one thing with a lot of anime that's kind of like a saga of sorts, is that there is a lot of setup, and so things kind of get drawn out a bit depending on the length of the series. If Blue Seed was something along the length of, say, Dragon Ball Z, goodness gracious, this would have been dragged out for weeks on end, just with one giant root popping up in, say, Tokyo, another one popping up in Kyoto, and all sorts of things. It's like a very slow, very drawn out process. So it's kind of small grace is that the series is only 26 episodes in length. If it was 50 episodes, there would be a lot of damn filler to make things stretch. So again, thank goodness for small miracles there. So overall, though, with that said, as we prepare to enter the final handful of episodes of the series, episode 20 to me gives me that vibe of the calm before the storm. We get very little action, with the one fight sequence between Kusanagi and Murakumo at the very start of the episode, but this episode is basically all about Momiji getting some character development, being able to be her old self for just a little bit of time before the proverbial crap hits the fan, which is bound to happen. So on that note, as I mentioned at the start of this video, that we got the return of 4 shows next week to the reoccurring segments in the basement. And here's what's going to happen. Next Friday, we'll go over episode 21, Goodbye, No Way, Separation with Tears. And obviously we'll kick off the 4th and final disc on this here box set. And then I'm thinking we'll come back the very next day on Saturday to go over episode 22. If I which so it'll be back-to-back days of talking anime as opposed to Wednesday and Friday, until obviously when shows go on breaks, like if Arrow goes on a week hiatus, which tends to happen with the CW. Talking Anime will return. We'll get a slot on Wednesday nights, and so forth. So with all that being said, what's coming up next in the basement? Well, technically, everything I had planned for today is already done. So the next big thing will be tomorrow, which will kick off the look at episode 7 of a series of unfortunate events. And also we got the Ghostbusters Containment Unit. The episode we'll be talking about this time around is from the real Ghostbusters series, Look Homeward, Ray. So, my friends, and you are my friends, be kind, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.